The alien princess faced an arranged marriage but grinned when she saw her groom was human. Best HFY Princess Lyra of the Andari cluster had lived all her life among glowing spires and floating gardens. Her home, the sky palace of Zephyra, hovered over a gas giant that shimmered with green and violet clouds. The palace floated silently above the planet, tethered only by beams of energy that pulsed like gentle heartbeat lights. Lyra had never walked on solid ground for more than a few hours in her childhood, and she had certainly never traveled to a frontier planet like Kestrel 9. Today, though, she had no choice. Her parents, the rulers of the Andari cluster, had arranged a marriage for her. It was meant to secure an alliance with humans, a species that was once considered primitive by Andari standards, but had recently proven themselves clever, inventive, and, surprisingly, brave. Lyra had prepared for years for this moment. She had studied human culture, practiced their greetings, and memorized their history, but nothing in her lessons could prepare her for the sight of her groom. When the shuttle finally touched down on Kestrel 9, the air was thick with dust and the smell of dry earth. Twin suns blazed overhead, painting the sky orange and gold. The shuttle doors hissed open, and Lyra stepped out into a world that was nothing like the polished corridors of her palace. The town square was a chaos of color, dust, and motion. Vendors shouted about hover cattle and energy spinners. Children chased each other while small hover drones zipped overhead. In the middle of it all stood a human, Captain Jace Harper. He was tall, with suntanned skin and a crooked, confident smile. His boots were worn, and his brown duster had more patches than fabric. A wide-brimmed hat shaded his sharp, playful eyes. He held his hands behind his back, tipping his hat politely when he saw Lyra step off the shuttle. Lyra's heart skipped. She had expected someone formal, someone serious. Perhaps a human diplomat in a clean uniform, carefully hiding any emotion. But this human, he looked like he had ridden across a dozen planets just for fun, and maybe had lived to tell the tale. "Princess Lyra?" he asked, his voice warm and steady. "I'm Jace Harper. Welcome to Kestrel 9. Lyra curtsied lightly, unsure if humans did such things. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried a hint of curiosity. "I have never been to your world before." Jace grinned. "Well, I'll show you the best of it. Fast rides, high cliffs, and maybe even a little adventure. If you like that kind of thing." Lyra blinked. Adventure? She had never ridden a hoverbike, never explored red canyons under twin suns, and never dared to touch the kind of dust-stained streets humans called home. Yet something about this human made her pulse faster. Not fear, but excitement. She found herself smiling back. The ceremony that would make them officially betrothed was scheduled for the evening, but Jace insisted she see the town first. He walked her through the crowded market streets, introducing her to the people of Kestrel 9. Unlike the polite and controlled Andari citizens, these humans laughed freely, shouted freely, and moved freely. There was a rhythm to their life that made Lyra's head spin. A young vendor with a cart full of glowing fruits offered her a taste. Lyra held up one of the fruits, its skin pulsing softly in shades of pink and purple. She took a bite. Sweetness exploded in her mouth, and she laughed, a sound she had not realized had been buried under years of palace formality. "See?" Jace said, smiling. "Humans know how to enjoy life, even in a dusty old frontier town." Lyra looked around. Hover horses raced across the canyon cliffs in the distance. Children waved at her, their faces painted with bright colors and happiness. And Jace, he seemed at home here, yet he was paying attention to her every step, guiding her through this strange new world. They walked past a group of artisans crafting tiny machines with glowing cores. Lyra watched in fascination as a boy no older than 10 assembled a floating toy from scraps, making it spin and hover with precise motions. Humans, she realized, were unpredictable, but brilliant. "Do you do this often?" she asked, pointing to the child. "Every day," Jace said. "Humans have a way of turning the impossible into the ordinary." Lyra smiled. She liked that. She liked that very much. In the Andari cluster, things were perfect, polished, and predictable. Humans were alive. As the day went on, Jace led her to the edge of a red canyon. From here, she could see the twin suns dipping toward the horizon, casting shadows and painting the sky in gold and crimson. The wind stirred her hair, and she felt more awake than she ever had in her life. "This is beautiful," she said. "Not as beautiful as what's waiting," Jace replied, nodding toward a sleek starship parked near the canyon's edge. Its surface reflected the fading sunlight, and it hummed with quiet power. "We'll take a little ride before the ceremony. Just to loosen things up." Lyra hesitated. Riding in a human starship? Flying through a canyon under twin suns? It sounded reckless. But the spark of curiosity in her chest refused to be ignored. She nodded. Let's go. The moment she stepped aboard, the ship seemed to respond to her presence. Lights pulsed softly, controls adjusted to her size, and a holographic map projected above the dashboard. Jace guided her to a seat and handed her a small control panel. Don't worry, he said with a wink. I'll handle the flying. You just enjoy the view. The ship lifted off smoothly, hovering over the canyon rim. Lyra felt a thrill she had never known. The wind rushed past the open windows, her hair lifted in the twin sun's rays, and the canyon walls blurred below like streaks of fire and stone. She laughed. The sound was pure, unrestrained, and Jace laughed with her. In that moment, all the lessons, all the ceremony, all the expectation of an arranged marriage melted away. She wasn't a princess anymore, just Lyra, staring at the beauty of a world she had never imagined, beside a human who made her feel alive. Hours passed like minutes. They talked, laughed, and shared stories. Lyra learned that Jace had grown up on different frontier worlds, learning to survive, explore, and improvise. He had seen strange creatures, navigated asteroid fields, and even raced against rival pilots for fun. And yet, he was kind, respectful, and curious about her world too. As the twin suns sank completely, the horizon shimmered with the first hints of Zephyra's second sun rising from the other side of the planet. Lyra turned to Jace, her eyes sparkling. I expected a human groom to be ordinary, formal, perhaps dull. Jace tilted his head, grinning.
Ordinary?
Never. Lyra laughed softly, shaking her head. She realized that the thought of this marriage, which had once filled her with dread, no longer frightened her. If this was what a human could be, reckless, brave, inventive, then maybe, just maybe, an alliance with humans would be more interesting than she had ever imagined. They returned to the town just as the evening ceremony was about to begin. The townspeople had gathered, curious and respectful, forming a loose circle around the ceremonial platform. Lyra's shuttle would take her back to her palace later, but tonight she would officially meet the expectations of her family and of the Andari cluster. But when Lyra looked at Jace, standing there with his crooked grin and easy confidence, she felt a spark of rebellion. Perhaps this arranged marriage wouldn't be about duty alone. Perhaps it could be about choice, adventure, and laughter. She stepped forward onto the ceremonial platform, her robes glittering in the fading sunlight. The Andari ambassador spoke in formal tones, outlining the duties and responsibilities of the union. Lyra nodded politely, letting the words wash over her. Then she looked at Jace. He tipped his hat, winked, and said, "Ready for an adventure, princess?" Lyra grinned. "More than you know." And for the first time in her life, she felt the thrill of stepping into the unknown, not just as a princess, but as someone alive, curious, and ready to face the future with a human by her side. The morning sun of Kestrel. 9 rose slowly, painting the dusty canyons in shades of red and gold. Princess Lyra woke in the small guest room of the Frontier Inn where Jace had arranged for her to stay. The room was simple. A soft bed, a wooden table, and a window that framed the rugged landscape outside. It smelled faintly of spices and metal, a scent both strange and oddly comforting to her. She dressed quickly, smoothing her robes and adjusting the small jewels woven into her hair. Today, Jace had promised to show her more of the frontier, the real life of humans outside the polished halls of her palace. She felt a flutter of excitement she had never known among Andari etiquette and careful routines. Downstairs, she found Jace leaning casually against the doorway, hat tipped low. "Good morning, princess," he said, grinning. "Ready to see what life is like when it isn't planned by a council?" Lyra laughed softly. "I think I am." They stepped outside, where the dusty streets were already alive with activity. Humans moved with a kind of organized chaos, trading goods, fixing hover carts, and shouting greetings to each other. Lyra felt her pulse quicken. It was overwhelming, but she liked it. Jace led her to a hover stable on the edge of town. Rows of hover horses, sleek and humming with energy, grazed quietly. A young stablehand showed them to the best mounts, and soon Lyra found herself perched on a silver stallion-like hover horse, her fingers gripping the reins tightly. "Hold on," Jace said, climbing onto his own mount. "I'm not going slow today." Lyra felt a thrill of fear and excitement as the hover horses lifted off the ground. Dust swirled around them, and the red canyon walls blurred as they raced across the plains. She laughed loudly, a sound of pure delight, as Jace shouted encouragement from behind her. For the first time, she realized that humans didn't just live, they felt life. Every wind gust, every heartbeat, every laugh was a small rebellion against boredom and routine. After their ride, Jace brought her to the market once more, this time to meet some of the town's leaders and inventors. Lyra was fascinated by the devices humans had created, small machines that could move without fuel, lights that danced like fireflies, and communication devices that projected holograms into midair. They take what they have and make it better, Jace explained. They don't wait for perfection. They experiment, fail, try again. That's how humans survive out here. Lyra watched a boy demonstrate a small floating robot. The robot spun, hovered, and then gently nudged a fruit cart without toppling it. She clapped her hands. "It is clever," she said, her voice bright with admiration. Jace laughed. "You're just realizing it? You and Dari are brilliant too, but humans are unpredictable. That's our edge." As the day went on, Lyra felt more comfortable with Jace than she had with any human diplomat she had studied in books. He was kind but daring, careful but spontaneous, and somehow in his presence, the weight of her royal duties felt lighter. But not everything on Kestrel 9 was peaceful. As they returned to the outskirts of town near the canyon rim, Lyra noticed a small group of figures in the distance. They moved quickly, carrying strange equipment that glowed faintly in the sunlight. Jace's expression changed. "Those are miners," he said quietly. "They're supposed to be following the town's rules, but some of them like to take shortcuts. Sometimes those shortcuts can be dangerous." Lyra's curiosity outweighed her fear. "Dangerous how?" "They like to explore abandoned caves and ruins for crystals and metals," Jace explained. "Some of them take things that don't belong to them. Mostly it's harmless, but occasionally it can cause trouble." Before Lyra could ask more, one of the miners tripped on loose rock and stumbled toward them. He didn't seem hostile, just clumsy, but his equipment beeped and shimmered unnaturally. Jace stepped closer to Lyra and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's nothing for now," he said, "but I'll keep an eye on them." Lyra nodded, but she couldn't help feeling a small shiver of unease. The frontier was exciting, yes, but it was also unpredictable. To distract herself, Jace suggested they explore a nearby canyon. The walls were steep, glowing faintly from minerals embedded in the rock. Hover lights floated along the edges of the cliffs, illuminating paths for hikers and travelers. Lyra marveled at the beauty and danger of it all, the thrill of walking paths that weren't padded or safe, knowing that every step required focus and courage. "Do you get scared?" she asked suddenly, glancing at Jace. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but fear keeps me alive. Without it, I'd make mistakes out here." Lyra thought about that. In the Andari cluster, fear was a tool for control. Here, it was a guide. Humans didn't hide from it. They faced it. They stopped at a small ledge overlooking a canyon pool. The water shimmered with reflected light from both suns. Lyra reached down, touching the cool water. She laughed softly. "I never thought I would feel so small and alive at the same time." "Small?" Jace asked, raising an eyebrow. "You understand?" she said, smiling. "Everything here is bigger, wilder, and more alive than my palace. And yet I feel more in control than ever." "Strange, isn't it?" Jace chuckled. "It's called living. You get used to it." As they prepared to return to town, a sudden movement caught Lyra's eye. The miners from earlier were now closer, carrying larger devices that looked like scanners. One of them pointed toward the canyon pool, whispering to the others. Lyra's instincts, honed from years of careful observation, kicked in. "Jace, they are watching something." He nodded, eyes narrowing. "We need to stay calm and keep moving. No sudden actions." They rode quietly back to the town, the miners trailing at a distance. Lyra felt her heart pound, not from fear, but from the thrill of the unknown. She realized that life on the frontier was not about comfort or rules. It was about awareness, courage, and trust. And she trusted Jace. Once they returned safely, Jace led Lyra to the starship parked at the canyon edge. "Time for something different," he said. "I want you to see why humans like to explore." Lyra stepped aboard, her eyes wide as the ship lifted off. They flew over the canyons, the minerals in the cliffs sparkling like stars in the sunlight. Lyra leaned against the railing, laughing as Jace maneuvered the ship skillfully through narrow gaps and sudden drops. "You humans really do like adventure," she said, gripping the railing. "Only the fun kind," Jace replied, laughing. "And with good company, it's even better." Lyra felt her heart lift. She had expected her arranged marriage to be a duty, a set of rules and expectations. Instead, she was discovering a partner, someone who made her laugh, who taught her new things, and who shared in the joy of life's small adventures. As they returned to the town in the evening, the sun setting behind the canyon walls, Lyra realized something important. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they were also courageous and creative. Perhaps that was the true reason her parents wanted the alliance. Not just for politics, but for the chance to learn from a species that could thrive anywhere, even on the harshest frontier worlds. That night, as Lyra prepared for bed in the inn, she looked out at the glowing horizon. Kestrel 9 was a strange, beautiful, and dangerous place, but she felt alive here in a way she never had in the Sky Palace. She thought of Jace, his easy grin, and the excitement in his eyes. Perhaps this arranged marriage was not a trap or a duty. It might be the beginning of something unexpected, something exciting, and something real. Lyra smiled, feeling a spark of hope. Tomorrow, she would face more of the frontier. Tomorrow, she would ride higher cliffs, explore new paths, and learn more about humans. And perhaps, just perhaps, she would begin to understand why her parents had chosen this human groom for her. For now, she let the soft glow of Kestrel 9's twin suns lull her to sleep. Adventure awaited. The morning on Kestrel 9 broke with a crisp wind that carried the smell of dust and iron. Princess Lyra stretched as she gazed out of the inn window. Today felt different. She had ridden hover horses, explored canyons, and flown in a starship, but something in the air hinted at excitement, a challenge she didn't yet understand. Jace was already waiting outside, leaning casually against his duster. "Ready for round 2?" he asked, a teasing grin on his face. Lyra laughed, adjusting her hair. "I suppose I am. What do you have in mind?" "You'll see soon enough," Jace replied. "But I think today you'll get to try something you never imagined." The pair made their way to the canyon rim, where the red rocks seemed to glow under the twin suns. In the distance, Lyra noticed the miners from the day before. They were moving faster now, carrying the strange scanning devices, and occasionally glancing toward the town. Jace's expression hardened slightly. "They're up to something," he said quietly. "And it's not harmless this time. We need to be careful and clever." Lyra's curiosity outweighed her fear. She nodded. "Tell me what to do." Jace smiled. "We're going to teach them a lesson they'll remember. No harm, just a bit of frontier justice." They approached a narrow canyon path where the miners were trying to set up their scanners. Lyra could see that the machines were designed to locate rare crystals in the canyon walls, valuable but technically forbidden by the town council. Lyra frowned. Why would they risk so much? Jace shrugged. "Some humans, and aliens too, I guess, think rules are suggestions." Lyra's mind raced. On Zafira, breaking rules was almost unthinkable. But here, in this unpredictable world, bending the rules with caution was part of survival. Jace handed her a small device that projected holographic images. "This will help confuse them," he said. "Follow my lead and don't panic." The miners were so focused on their scanning devices that they didn't notice Lyra and Jace approaching. Lyra activated her holographic device, and suddenly multiple shimmering images of herself appeared along the canyon path. The miners gasped, unsure which way to look. "Princess Lyra," one shouted, "there's more than one of you." Lyra grinned. "It seems we have a bit of an advantage." Jace laughed. "Keep them guessing, princess." That's the frontier way. For the next several minutes, Lyra moved the holographic images carefully, guiding the miners away from the canyon walls and toward safe paths where they couldn't interfere with the town or the crystals. Jace used his hoverbike to circle around, keeping an eye on the situation and giving Lyra encouragement. "You're learning fast," he said. "I didn't think a princess could be so creative." Lyra laughed. "I've had excellent teachers." The miners finally realized they had been outsmarted. Frustrated but unharmed, they packed up their devices and muttered complaints as they left. Lyra felt a thrill, not from danger but from accomplishment. She had helped protect the canyon, the town, and even the miners themselves from making a bigger mistake. Jace landed his hoverbike beside her. "You did well," he said, his smile warm. "Most humans would have panicked or made mistakes. You stayed calm, clever, and brave." Lyra felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. Brave, clever. Not titles she had often used for herself, but here, in this wild frontier world, they felt earned. After the miners left, Jace suggested a ride through the canyon, this time at a slower pace. They glided over glowing minerals and sparkling water pools, the twin suns painting the canyon in breathtaking colors. Lyra leaned forward, feeling the wind on her face, and laughed freely. "I never thought the frontier could be so beautiful," she said. "Most people see danger first," Jace replied. "I see adventure. And I see you learning to enjoy it." Lyra smiled. I am learning, thanks to you. They stopped at a high plateau, looking out over the vast canyon system. The air was still, except for the faint hum of distant hovercrafts. Lyra felt a sense of peace here, far from the formalities of the palace. I don't want this day to end, she said softly. Then don't let it, Jace replied. The frontier is always open.
There's always something to explore.
Lyra's eyes lit up.
You mean...
We could continue tomorrow. Jace grinned. And the next day. And the next, if you want. Lyra laughed. She had expected an arranged marriage to be a duty, full of rules and obligations. Instead, she was discovering a partnership. Someone who encouraged her curiosity, challenged her, and respected her decisions. As the suns began to set, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold, Lyra felt a sense of excitement she had never known. She was a princess, yes, but she was also someone capable of facing challenges, making choices, and enjoying life on her own terms. Tomorrow, she said, I want to explore the hidden caves I saw on the map. Jace's eyes twinkled. You'll love them. But there's a twist. I think you'll need your Andari skills for this one. Lyra raised an eyebrow. And what skills are those? Jace chuckled. Observation, calm thinking, and the ability to stay graceful even when everything around you is falling apart. Basically all the skills a princess should have. Lyra laughed again. Then I'm ready. They returned to the town as evening fell, the twin suns setting and casting long shadows over the dusty streets. Townspeople waved as they passed, some curious about the princess, others simply enjoying the spectacle of two adventurers returning from the canyon. At the inn, Lyra took a quiet moment to reflect. She had faced unexpected challenges today, solved problems, and even guided others without needing to command or enforce. She realized that bravery came in many forms, not just fighting or risking life, but thinking clearly, staying calm, and using one's mind to guide others. As she prepared for bed, she looked at the stars beginning to appear above Kestrel 9. She felt excitement, curiosity, and a strange sense of anticipation. The frontier was vast, full of surprises and possibilities, and she had barely scratched the surface. Jace knocked lightly at her door. Ready for the next adventure tomorrow? He asked. Lyra smiled. Yes, and I want you to know, I enjoy exploring with you. Jace tipped his hat, a playful glint in his eyes. I enjoy it too, Princess, and I have a feeling we'll see even more excitement soon. Lyra lay in bed that night, thinking about the day's events. The miners, the canyon ride, the hover bikes, and the hidden crystals had all been thrilling. But what stayed with her most was the partnership she felt with Jace. He didn't just lead her through adventures. He respected her choices, encouraged her curiosity, and made the unpredictability of the frontier feel like a gift rather than a threat. She drifted to sleep with a smile, the twin suns now replaced by the soft glow of stars. Tomorrow she would explore the hidden caves, learn more about the frontier, and perhaps discover even more about humans, and about herself. For the first time, Lyra felt that her arranged marriage might not be just an obligation. It might be the start of something real, exciting, and extraordinary. And as the stars shone above Kestrel 9, she felt ready for anything the universe could throw at her. The morning on Kestrel 9 was calm, with the twin suns rising slowly over the red canyons. Princess Lyra awoke feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Today she and Jace would explore the hidden caves they had spotted on the map. But more importantly, it was the day of her formal ceremony, a small frontier wedding arranged by the Andari Council, though she now felt differently about it than she had when she first arrived. Jace was already outside, waiting near his starship with a grin that made her heart skip. Ready for a little adventure before the ceremony? He asked. Lyra smiled, adjusting her robes. Always. But you promised it wouldn't be dangerous. Jace laughed. Just tricky. And a bit mysterious. The ride to the hidden caves was thrilling. They glided over narrow canyon paths, past glittering mineral veins and sparkling pools of water. Lyra held tightly to her hover horse, feeling the wind on her face and the thrill of freedom in her chest. She realized that frontier life was not just about exploration. It was about trust, courage, and partnership, and she trusted Jace completely. When they reached the caves, Lyra could see that they were not ordinary. Strange crystals glowed faintly from the walls, casting rainbow colors across the rocky surface. The tunnels twisted and turned, and the light seemed to dance in unusual patterns. These caves are beautiful, Lyra whispered, stepping carefully. Almost alive. They're tricky too, Jace said. The paths twist and sometimes lead nowhere, but that's half the fun. Lyra smiled, remembering how she had guided the miners earlier with her holographic skills. Here, Too, she needed to think, observe, and act carefully. She used her Andari training to notice small patterns in the glowing crystals and subtle changes in the walls of the cave. "This way," she said, pointing to a narrow passage. "It looks safer and more open ahead." Jace followed closely, trusting her instinct. They moved deeper into the cave, the colors shifting and reflecting off the walls. Suddenly they heard soft murmurs. A group of miners had entered the cave as well, seemingly lost and confused. Lyra held up her hand. "Let me handle this." With careful steps she approached them. "You shouldn't be here," she said calmly but firmly. "These caves are fragile and the crystals are rare. If you damage them, you'll upset the balance of the canyon." The miners looked at her, surprised. "It's the princess," one said. "We didn't mean any harm. We just wanted to explore." Lyra smiled gently. "I understand curiosity, but curiosity must be guided by care. Let me show you the way out safely." With Jace supporting her from behind, Lyra led the miners through the twisting tunnels, pointing out the fragile crystals and dangerous drop-offs. The miners listened, impressed by her knowledge and calm authority. They realized that the princess was not just a figurehead. They were learning from her. When the group reached the cave exit, the sunlight from the twin suns spilled across their faces. The miners bowed their heads respectfully. "Thank you, princess," one said. "We'll never forget your guidance." Lyra nodded, smiling. "Go carefully. Explore safely." Jace clapped her on the shoulder. "See? Leadership without force. Clever and kind. You're really becoming a frontier hero, princess." Lyra laughed softly. "Perhaps the frontier is teaching me as much as I am teaching it." After leaving the caves, they returned to the town. The townspeople had gathered at the ceremonial platform, curious to witness the princess and her human groom. Lyra felt a flutter of nervousness. This was still an arranged marriage, but her heart was no longer heavy with duty. It was light with excitement and choice. The ceremony began simply, with no elaborate rituals or formalities. The town's leader spoke kindly, explaining the union as a partnership between two worlds. Then Lyra and Jace faced each other, smiling. "I didn't expect a human groom to be unpredictable and brave," Lyra said softly, looking into Jace's eyes. "But I think I made the right choice." Jace grinned. "And I didn't expect my bride to be so clever, daring, and full of surprises. But I wouldn't want anyone else by my side." They exchanged words that mattered more than titles or obligations. Vows were made, not just of duty, but of partnership, curiosity, and shared adventures. Lyra promised to embrace the frontier, to explore new worlds, and to learn from humans. Jace promised to support her, respect her choices, and share in the joys of discovery. The crowd cheered softly, not with noise, but with warmth. Humans and aliens alike celebrated the union, not just as a political alliance, but as the coming together of two spirits ready to face the unknown. After the ceremony, Lyra and Jace walked to the edge of the canyon, hand in hand. The twin suns set, casting long shadows and painting the sky in violet, gold, and pink. Lyra felt a sense of peace and excitement she had never known in the Sky Palace. "You see," Jace said, "the frontier isn't just wild landscapes or crystals. It's the people, the choices, and the moments we share." Lyra nodded. "And I can't imagine experiencing it with anyone else." They returned to the town where children ran up to greet them. Lyra laughed as she showed a few of them how to balance small hovering crystals on their hands, using her Andari control techniques. Jace joined in, making the children laugh even more with his playful tricks. The town had never seen such joy and cooperation between human and Andari before. That evening, they climbed aboard Jace's starship. The twin suns had fully set, revealing a sky glittering with stars. Lyra leaned on the railing, feeling the soft hum of the ship beneath her. "Where to next?" she asked. Jace smiled, steering the ship toward the horizon.
Wherever the stars take us.
"The universe is wide, and I think we've only just begun our adventures." Lyra nodded, excitement and curiosity sparkling in her eyes. She had once feared an arranged marriage, feared duty and expectation. But now, she saw that life could be full of surprises, learning, laughter, and partnership. She had found someone who respected her, challenged her, and shared in the wonder of the frontier. As the ship lifted off, gliding over Kestrel, Nine's glowing canyons, Lyra felt free in a way she never had on Saphira. She looked at Jace and grinned. "I think I'm going to like this life. More than I ever imagined. And I'm glad I get to share it with you," Jace said. Together they soared into the night, ready to explore new worlds, face new challenges, and embrace the frontier with courage, curiosity, and laughter. Lyra knew that the universe was vast and full of mysteries, but with Jace by her side, she was ready for anything. The frontier was wide, the stars beckoned, and Princess Lyra, the clever Andari, had found not just a human groom, but a partner for life and adventure. The dust of Kestrel, 9 glimmered below, a silent witness to the beginning of an extraordinary journey. And as the twin suns rose again the next day, Lyra and Jace looked forward to every challenge, every laugh, and every sparkling moment the universe could offer. Together, they would make the stars their home.